Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, and I have an outstanding crew tonight. Rick, Mr. Opinion Curti. Welcome back, Mr. Curti.
Thanks for having me on your show, Scott. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And Steve Balestrieri. Welcome back, Mr. Patriot.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. As always, Scott, it's always a pleasure talking football with you guys.
Well, we're going to have a good time tonight. And Mel Farr Jr., we got to let everybody know that if you want to see Mel Farr Jr., Wednesday night is the night to see the Mailman. Oh, there you go. That's an interesting name, the Mailman.
Thought about that one. You thought that one up all by yourself, huh?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. You know what? And I haven't had a whole lot of caffeine tonight to come up with one like that. So we got the Mailman. Everybody has a nickname around here anyway. So we got the Mailman.
Yeah, there
And
you go.
Wednesday's his night. You want to see the Mailman? Tune in every Wednesday night. And last but not least, JB Ellis. Welcome back.
What's going on? What's going on, guys? Glad to be here.
All right. Well, just so you know, folks, we're going to be talking about sports media overkill, and we're going to have a lot of opinions on 5 people. Oh, and just like Mel asked, are we going to talk about them all at once? No, we're going to do them one at a time. And I have to make a confession, folks. Okay. I eat one food item at a time. So I will be talking about one player at a time, or coach, that is. So with that said, okay, let me set things up a little bit so that people understand where we're going. You know, I do watch a lot of ESPN. A lot of it is not only to gain content ideas, but to watch styles as well from various hosts, you know, so I can try to learn a little bit, be a student of the industry. And what I've noticed in the last several months during the off season is that we all know ESPN is a 24-hour media outlet. So they're definitely desperate for content. Sometimes, though, I tend to think that there's overkill on particular topics compared to what it used to be. So, therefore, we all know that they're desperate to fill airtime, and that's where we're going to set it up from here. The 2 shows I watch a lot, aside from SportsCenter, is Get Up with Mike Greenberg, and I think Mike Greenberg does an absolutely outstanding job. He really does. And First Take, well, you know what? They talk about one thing too, and you know some of the personalities are good, and some of them are a little loud for my own taste. If I ever need an alarm clock, then I could definitely take my tape recorder out or digital recorder, and I could probably use that as one of my alarms, and I guarantee that would get me out of bed. With that said, okay, I'm not referencing any names, but for all you people that didn't understand, there's a guy very loud on there. I don't have to. You already know, anyways. So we're going to start off with Todd Bowles. And JB broke this story a couple of weeks ago here while we were on. The new Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach replacing Bruce Arians. But before we talk about the coverage of Todd Bowles, I'm going to go to each and every one of you guys. Rick Curti, was that a good hire for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Absolutely. I love it. It was a great hire. He's within the organization. You know, when they won the Super Bowl, I said Tall should have been the Super Bowl MVP because their defense, I've never seen Mahomes so rattled before, and they really rattled him. And to me, he was the MVP of that Super Bowl. So it's a terrific hire. I love it.
Steve?
Absolutely. I as I've said before on here, I've written about it as well. Todd Bowles got a really raw deal from the Jets a few years ago. And I think he's an outstanding coach. He's a great defensive coach. He hasn't got a really good shot yet at being a good head coach. And, you know, putting him with that Tampa team, I think that's a fantastic move. I think he's going to do quite well.
Okay, JB.
I think it was the best decision the Bucks could have made. You know, when Arians stepped down, they were able to keep somebody inside the system, someone who's capable of leading a team. You know, he, like Steve said and Rick, he had just was in a bad position last time. His defense has always performed well. Brady came back, so their offense will be in the best position. So getting a defensive coach was a great move. I think it's going to work out well for Tampa.
Mel?
Yeah, I think it's a great hire. I think obviously it's great for Todd Bowles. The opportunity he had before, like most African Americans get, aren't very good ones, and you know, where you don't have a quarterback, and you know that's the problem that they had there is they didn't have a quarterback. Now If Tom Brady had decided to retire, this is a much more difficult job and a much different job. But because Tom Brady did decide to come back, this is the best possible scenario for him, and it's the best possible scenario for the Bucs as well. They had that continuity in the coaching staff. There's not a whole lot of change except for Todd Bowles. He just puts on the head coaching cap to probably promote somebody to be the defensive coordinator. But I'm sure he'll still work with the defense and give Byron Leftwich an opportunity to really shine too, to see what he's about. Because I think that Bruce Arians probably hovered over him a lot, maybe even took a lot of the credit for the things they're doing offensively, similar to what's going on in Kansas City with Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy. And it's probably one of the reasons why Eric Bieniemy hasn't had an opportunity up until this point.
Yeah, good point. And I want to throw a couple things out there with you guys. Number one, for a lot of you individuals out there that think that there's a conspiracy theory that Tom Brady didn't get along with Bruce Arians, check it at the door. I don't believe it. I truly believe in my mind, okay, that Bruce Arians does well with the minority hiring. Byron Leftwich, obviously, a living proof of that. But I want to bring up Dr. Jen Walter was hired by the Arizona Cardinals as a assistant coach. So, for me, Bruce Arians wanted to make sure that Byron Leftwich had a job where it wasn't a bad job, but he walked into a good job. So you gave the minorities an opportunity to succeed rather than fall on your face. We didn't need anything to do with the Brian Flores where you're going to walk into a bad situation, hope to turn around. We saw how that worked out anyways. And I think Steve Wilkes was that walked into a situation where he's a one and done after a 3-13 situation with the Cardinals. So I truly believe in my mind that Bruce Arians was genuine in his decision to handpick his successor with Todd Bowles. I really do. Now, I'm going to go back to the theme overkill. I don't have a problem maybe devoting a segment or two, getting an interview here and there. But I'm going to tell you something. When you have a 2-hour broadcast, I find it hard to believe that you can go on and talk about a subject for more than 30 minutes at any given time in a 2-hour area. And you know what, Steve, I'm going to defer to you on this. Don't you think that if you talk about a 30 minutes or more on a given subject in a 2-hour span, that it's overdoing it?
Well, that's the Boston media every single day. I mean, they can take something as innocuous as like, or Rob Gronkowski made a comment the other day where he was being typical Gronk. He took a little dig at the Patriots. That was talked nonstop for 2 days. For 2 days. So, yeah, that doesn't surprise me a bit. I mean, this is what sports media has turned into a lot of hot takes. And if you're not tweaking the listeners and the fan base, then, the producers are going to get on your case. And that's exactly what's going on with it. That whole Bruce Arians thing, I thought was way overblown with Tom Brady. I mean, you look after Arians, had made his decision. Look at the post Brady made. If he hated him, would he be saying all the things that he did? I doubt it.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further, SB, that if he really hated him, do you think he would have showed up at his press conference leaving either? I mean, I thought he showed up out of respect there as well. So, anybody else want to add? And again, mind you, this show is not about to pick on ESPN by any means. That they've been around since 1979. I've gone ahead and watched them from the beginning when you had the Bob Lees and the Chris Bermans, two of the greatest announcers that I've ever seen, and Stuart Scott, and the list goes on and on. So I don't want to sit here and think, oh, you're bashing ESPN. That's exactly what I'm not doing. But I'm talking about the fact that for a national network to talk about something, I think you should have a little more versatility on your shows. Rather, that's one thing that the Boston media or local media will talk about it forever. I get it. But I'm talking about a national network overkilling something for any longer than it has to be when there's more than one thing going on in the sports world. That's all I'm saying. Any of you guys want to add to it before we go on to the next one?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get what you're saying about ESPN, but the quality of what they do has gone down. You know, I get what they're doing. They're trying to get ratings. They come out with some of the most outrageous takes. I'll have First Take on every morning as I'm working, you know, and I'll see the stupidest thing on the bottom of the screen. I can't have the sound on because I'm working, and you know I got to take care of what I'm doing. But and I'll take a picture and I'll send it to my co-host for Sideline Sports, and I'll be like, seriously, is this what they're talking about? Are they just, you know, trying to drag people in to watch? You know, there's got to be better things that are happening in sports right now. I get that you want to talk about the hottest topic, and you want to sound provocative, but some of the things that you know you see on the bottom of the screen, or if you listen to, you know, they have a lot more talent and quality than what they're doing right now. And you know, from the guys they used to have, they're not up to that same par. But you know, I still love ESPN. It's ESPN. You know?
Right.
It's more like a tabloid right now. You have a lot of guys that have to try to prove their value, and they'll come out with some type of ridiculous story, you know, like this Tom Brady thing. I mean, you know, the Bruce Arians, all this stuff, you know, Bruce coming in late. All that. I mean, well, Bruce has probably been doing that. I know he you know, he had a problem with his players, and I think Steve talked about this. Well, not his players, but his coaches. You know, if they ever missed one of their kids' events, you know, he wanted to make sure that there was a work-life balance. He didn't want those guys in there just work, and missing the entirety of their children growing up. And I think that's admirable that he puts that ahead of winning. But you know, ESPN is trying to sell eyeballs, and what draws eyeballs to the television? It's the Cowboys, it's Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You know, and then anything that might be salacious going on, you know, like what's going on with Deshaun Watson, obviously Baker Mayfield. He kind of always puts himself out there as well, because he's either saying something or they're critiquing him, or they're trying to validate his draft status, whatever the case may be. So all ESPN is trying to do, and then the other thing about it is obviously there must be an appetite for it, because you know they're getting the ratings, and you know that's what the ratings are telling them, that this is who we need to talk about, and we need to talk about it a lot. But yeah, there are a lot of other things that are going on in the sports world besides the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and you know, I got to tell you, being an ESPN original, I do miss watching Chris Berman on SportsCenter. I met Bob Lee. I had an opportunity to meet Bob Lee at the National Sports Media Association convention, and he retired the day after I left, after he was voted in their Hall of Fame. But I did get a photo with him, thank God. And I had an opportunity to talk to him on a couple of occasions, on a Sunday and then on a Monday. It was really neat. But Chris Berman, Bob Lee, and of course, nobody can forget Tom Mees. Tom Mees is all hockey like I've never seen, but Tom Mees is just a likable guy. And it's unfortunate that he died in that drowning accident, because those three originals to me are what I consider ESPN. With that said, let's segue over to Tom Brady. And the main topic we're going to talk about here is that so-called retirement. Sorry, Steve, I have to do this to you. Okay, but on a previous edition of the Sports Exchange with Tom Corin, I kept telling you and Tommy, Tom Brady did not send in his retirement papers. He wasn't retired. And you guys didn't believe me. I'm sorry I have to bring it up again, but ESPN seems to be talking. They certainly had a field day with this subject about Tom Brady's going to retire. We got sources doing this. And all of a sudden, when he decided to do a 360 and he's back, they were beating that one up big time, Steve. We got to start with a New England guy talking about Mr. Brady.
Yeah, I was way off the mark with that, because once he said he was going to retire, I figured that was it for him. You know, he'd been talking for years, ever since probably the last 4 or 5 years he was with the Patriots, that he was missing his kids growing up and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, he said he was going to cash it in. So I firmly believed he was going to retire. That's why I said it on the show there. But I was way off the beam on that one. But, you know, he's still playing at a ridiculously high level. He led the league in yardage and, you know, touchdown passes last year. So, I mean, it's not like he's just going through the motions out there.
Right.
So, but yeah, I just thought that the entire thing Okay, I get it. He came back and blah blah blah, but this whole thing that followed that I thought was way overblown.
Yeah, no, I'm with you all the way, SB. I really am. Again, I'm not talking like again. JB said it right. They've got to dwell on these particular subjects, and when you talk about the talent level being what it is, there's no way that the talent level of ESPN these days compares to what it was even 5 or 10 years ago. I mean, I can mention a lot of guys that should be there. One guy I actually had on a show on another network, Jay Crawford. They had no business letting him go. He's a guy out of Cleveland who used to do cold pizza and all that
Yeah.
other stuff. But again, I can mention a lot of names. I don't want to do that. But do you feel that Steve, that they overplayed the Tom Brady situation a bit?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Rick?
Absolutely. I mean, it's become like the National Enquirer. It's like a gossip channel now. It's sort of like Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. Like, who cares? And that's how Tom Brady is. It's like with Bruce Arians and Bill Belichick. He hates them. They don't talk to each other. And and it's like the other crazy rumors that Tom Brady was trying to go to the Dolphins and be the new quarterback there, and it was like, huh? So I just think they just say things just to get people's excitement up, their frustrations out, because it sells, craziness and without any facts, they just say crazy things, and just to get their ratings up. So it's become more of a it's not the ESPN I grew up watching. It's now like the E channel. It's like a gossip channel where they just gossip. Like with Aaron Rodgers, where is he going? Is he going here? Is he going there? Is he staying here? It was like a soap opera.
Well,
And
don't
that's what it's
worry. Aaron
become.
Rodgers is next, so save your comments on him.
Okay.
But I know where you're going. Okay, you're good,
It's a
Rick.
soap opera. It's like Days of Our Lives. I'm waiting for the hourglass to fall from ESPN, and we got to hear about all these crazy storylines. And I just want to watch the scores and sports. I could care less about Tom Brady, and him coming back. I thought he was officially done as well. I was surprised, and good for Todd Bowles because he's got one of the greatest quarterbacks right there. So I didn't see him. I thought he was done.
What about you, JB?
Listen, Tom Brady, no matter what he does, he woke up this morning. It's the number one story of the ESPN right now. It doesn't matter. I didn't think he was going to retire to begin with. He just made ESPN's winter after the Super Bowl by doing what he did, because now they could talk about him so much more. There's 8 million stories. He was going to be part owner with the Dolphins. He was going to do this. He was going to go jet skiing. Giselle was going to make him do housework. Who knows? But ESPN will talk about it. It sells. People want to hear about Tom Brady. He's polarizing. You either love him or hate him. Steve probably loved him for years, may like him a little bit less since he left. Guys in New York, we can't stand him, even though when the Giants beat him twice, we hate him. So other people love him. He's the greatest thing in the world. But there's no in the middle. You either love Tom Brady or you hate him. So for them, it sells. They'll talk about it all day.
All right, Mel, Mr. Tabloid. I'll tell you what, Mel, before you say anything, I got to tell you, the word tabloid stands out with what you say. Mel, you do have a tendency week in and week out when you come up with some stuff, come up with some unbelievable things. I've been telling a lot of my people here that Mel Farr Jr. has come a long way from our first days working together at another network. I will tell you, you have really done an unbelievable job progressing the way you have. And when you talk about tabloid, okay, I should probably go ahead and hashtag that tonight, but I have 20 already written down. But all right, let's go ahead. Give me your tabloid take on Tom Brady, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, I don't watch ESPN to be honest with you. I do watch the Fox program. I used to watch ESPN. I used to consume a lot of it, but it got to the point for me where it's just so repetitive and talking about pretty much the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that it got to be to the point where I didn't even want to listen to it anymore because I'm just tired of hearing the same thing. Now, I don't know if other people feel that way, but that's how I feel. And, these talking heads get paid a lot of money to do what they do. Back when we grew up, those time slots were probably filled with Sports Center and highlights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So now you have these talking heads, and it's pretty much all day from, Mike and Mike used to come on at 6:30 in the morning, and then it went to something else, and First Take or something like that went to that, and then all the way to 5 o'clock or something like that. I mean, you can watch these talking heads all day long, and then they'll come on each other's shows and talk about the same thing that they talked about earlier in the day. To me, it just gets to be nauseating to me. I just can't take it anymore. I can't consume it anymore. To where I just have to listen to music or something like that because I just can't take it.
Well, no, I'm with you, Mel. I mean, repetitive is exactly what it is. I
But
mean,
my biggest problem with it is like a lot of you guys have alluded to. A lot of the stories are just so ridiculous and they're so made up and they don't make sense that I can't believe that people are actually buying what they're selling. Because just common sense, haven't played the game. There's just some things that are just common sense. I'm just like that doesn't even make sense. I mean, how can you say something like that? And that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. And I'm wondering how many other people feel the way that I feel, that what they're saying just absolutely doesn't make any sense. But they get paid a lot of money, like I said, for their opinions, these talking heads. And obviously, they're extremely popular because they stay on television.
Well, amazingly enough, okay, because of the repetitive nature, and I will tell you, I do miss Mike and Mike. That was a heck of a show. I would sit there every single day and watch Mike and Mike for 4 hours. And I have to make a confession here that when I was in college, I used to watch General Hospital, Luke and Laura. I mean, and I
used to have my college schedule centered around the soap operas. To make sure that I'm able to come home and watch all of them that were on ABC. I was an ABC guy.
All my children for me.
All of them on ABC.
Yeah, General Hospital.
My children, General Hospital, and I think One Life to Live. I think it was the other one.
Yeah, we go back a little ways, don't we?
Young and the Restless. No,
One Life to Live got me started, but then General Hospital got me hooked. And at the University of South Florida, I used to schedule my classes around there. How did we get her? Yeah, how did we get on this subject? Because you know what? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing here.
Then when I was playing, I used to put it on the VCR, so when I come home from practice, I could watch them.
Well, luckily, I lived near a dorm, so once I got a class close by, I darted across campus, got up there, and watched the show, and boom! I of course back then I was a lot younger, a little bit more mobile than I am now. But no, General Hospital was that One Life to Live. Then they had The Edge of Night. All right, we better stay off that soap opera. And they realized, but
I'm not going to tell you guys what I used to rush back to watch when I was in college because you guys are a lot more up there than I was. I used to rush home to watch the Three Stooges.
Oh, did you really? You used to watch home and watch that? Well, I mean, I
rushed back to watch the Stooges, and
I love the
actually,
Stooges.
we used to watch it in the student union building. That they had a big television in there, and you couldn't get a seat in there when the Stooges were on.
Oh, well, you're not that much older than me, SB. Seriously. So, well, but just so you know, folks, we don't mind throwing it out there. Okay, so we have a few soap opera people that we never really thought I would even talk about on this show. But you know what? When you're talking about a network that prides itself on a soap opera, and we're talking and we tie this stuff together, there's a method for all our crazy madness. But yeah, no, I didn't mind General Hospital. Nowadays, I don't watch it. I seem to wind up in it more than I watch it nowadays. But that'll be for another day. So, but yeah, we'll talk about the Aaron Rodgers soap opera, shall we? Because I got news for you. Is Rodgers coming back? Where is Rodgers going to be traded? Okay. Is he going to Denver? Is he going to forget it? Rick, take over here talking about Aaron Rodgers. Please bail us out.
Well, it's like Shakespeare, when he wrote Much Ado About Nothing, and this is what it was with Aaron Rodgers, Much Ado About Nothing. He's another polarizing person. He said, for the, about the COVID and, his, this behavior over the last 3 or 4 years. I think he's turned into an absolute diva. So that helps with ESPN because they like that kind of stuff. Is he going to Denver? He's going to the 49ers? It was just a carousel. Much ado about nothing. He's staying with Green Bay. He got a gargantuan guaranteed money. And, I really didn't see him going anywhere else. I always saw him staying. And I'm just like, why do they keep talking about this? Like, who cares, to be quite honest? Unless you're Candy and you're a big old Green Bay Packers fan. So, but it was much ado about nothing, just like with Brady and Arians and all this stuff. And, it was just nauseating to me.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you right now, the Rodgers thing wore me out, especially considering all these Packer beat writers. But the only two people that got more publicity out of it than most people think were Kenny Mayne, who they shouldn't have let go either, and Pat McAfee. I hadn't heard of him until Aaron Rodgers got going. So with that said, Steve,
I love Pat McAfee show.
You what?
I love Pat McAfee show.
The great wrestler too. He was great in WrestleMania.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I never had heard of Pat McAfee until Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I will say this, and I'm going to turn it over to SB. Okay, the Aaron Rodgers thing wore me out. It didn't take a whole lot, and the problem is there's a sequel every year, one year after another. It's not like it changes. So, is he coming? Is he coming back? And whether or not people want to know it or not, with the Packers fans, why do you think they drafted Jordan Love? Because they got sick and tired of hearing it too, and they were looking to find a successor. So let's hurt Aaron's feelings, because one minute he's here, next minute he's not. We don't know where you're at. If you want to have a clown out there to juggle a baton, then you found Aaron Rodgers. Okay, SB, take it from here.
Yeah, I was at the saturation point with Rodgers last year. So, I mean, this year, it went from ridiculous to sublime, I think. The whole COVID thing last year, and then this thing, is he going to come back? Is he going to retire? Oh, he's going to force his way to Denver. We even talked about that on here. And, it was like nonstop. And, he ends right back where he was in Green Bay.
And by the way, anybody ever heard of the word immunized? All right, JB, obviously you're getting a kick out of it, right? Immunized, not vaccinated.
It's just so frustrating. I mean, when you look at the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, it came to a point where every week that's all we spoke about. I got to the point where I was just like, enough. No more Aaron Rodgers talk. It's the same conversation. All he wants is his money. He's disruptive to the team. He doesn't win in the playoffs. So, you get a lot of quarterbacks that can do that. Got to win before you can keep talking. And nobody was given the coaching staff enough credit to have such a disruptive force in the locker room who kept saying, I don't want to be there. I want this. I want that. Like a 2-year-old throwing a tantrum. Meanwhile, the coaching staff kept the whole team together, and they did nothing but go on and get the number 1 seed. Nobody on that team said anything negative against Aaron. Nobody came out and attacked them. They all played well together. So, to me, the coaching staff is the heroes of that team, that they kept everyone together.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And before I turn it over to the Mel Man, okay, now we have a new nickname, the Mel Man. All right, so I want to let everybody know that if you're listening to the show, you can do so on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, feel free to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and then you can get the notification and watch us all. Or you go to www.southfloridatribune.com. Just so you know, the hat that I'm wearing happens to be a red version of the Florida Atlantic University Owls. I didn't ask Steve to do it there. I was just looking for a good hat. And since I felt bad that I didn't go to the Owls spring game, at least I give him a little bit of advertising here on this platform. So, all right, the Mel Man, what are your thoughts about the A-Rod? And no, not Alex Rodriguez, Rick Curti. We'll leave that for another day. But were you sick and tired of the Aaron Rodgers situation, Mel, coming back and not coming back?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Aaron's problem was because of his play. Now, if he would have played better 3 years ago when they drafted before they drafted Jordan Love, they would have never drafted him. But it looked like his play was starting to decline. It also, Aaron's one of those kind of guys, you don't really, football, you don't know how important football is to him. He has other interests. And I think they were starting to get a sense that maybe he might decide to just, leave. And so they made the decision to move up in the draft. That kind of, for Aaron, that kind of, it lit a fire under him to where he's gone out the last 2 years and been the MVP of the league. And he's showing, hey, I can still play this game, and I can still play this game at a high level. So for the Packers, it's worked out great in a sense that they've gotten the best out of Aaron Rodgers in the regular season. Unfortunately, in the postseason, that's where he continues to have his problems. But of course, I mean, with him talking about him being immunized and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, again, yeah. I mean, it started in the off season. Like, where did this come from? All of a sudden, he's upset because they drafted Jordan Love. He wants more say about what's going on, about the personnel. They could have used the draft pick that they used on Jordan Love to give him some additional help. And then all of a sudden, he's contemplating retirement. Then goes up all the way up to the 11th hour, and then they work out some kind of deal. They get Randall Cobb back. They do something with his money or something like that, and his contract, and promise him he'll be a free agent at the end of the year and all that. Just basically caved into his demands. And then he decides to show up, and he goes out there and he balls out. Now I hear he's not going to off-season program this year, which for me as a player, that's a problem for me. We're supposed to be a team, and if we're a team, then everybody needs to buy in, and everybody needs to do the same stuff. I mean, just because you got all this money doesn't make you. I mean, it makes you're very, very important, but I'm important too. And if I got to be there, why shouldn't you be there? It's a bunch of spokes in a wheel, and you need all the spokes in the wheel in order to keep the thing together and to keep the wheels going. So I'm kind of disappointed to hear that he's decided after he got this big old contract that he's not going to participate in off-season workouts.
Well, the only thing I'll say to close on Aaron Rodgers is we did a show on this before. I'll just make mention of it again. De facto general managers, and he definitely falls into that category for sure. As a de facto general manager, get whatever he wants. And I'm going to segue over to Davante Adams because of all this waffling back and forth. He ended up, Davante Adams said, well, what about me? Don't I deserve to get paid? Well, guess what? Davante Adams forced his way out of Green Bay, and I'm actually happy that he landed with Vegas. So therefore, Aaron Rodgers, they may be seeking your input about the wide receivers that they're about to take in this draft, because I believe they could have had 2 first-rounders, Steve, but did they not hold out to get a better deal? Explain to me how that situation is, Steve.
Well, I mean, it's always different with different players and teams, but they I think they were hoping to get more for Davante Adams, but the rumors that I heard was, and it's not confirmed, but they didn't want to trade him within the conference. They wanted to trade him outside, so they took the best deal they could get outside the conference. And he ended up in a good spot. I mean, he's very close with Derek Carr.
Right.
So playing with the Raiders out in Vegas, that's probably works out great for Davante Adams. I was really surprised that Green Bay, allowed him to go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're just looking toward the future, or they knew they weren't going to be able to pay him and Rodgers anyway. So, but
Yeah,
I think him being in the conference probably had more to do with them getting less from the Raiders. But
yeah, I believe the compensation, Steve, was a first round this year and a second round pick. And I was listening to Mike Tannenbaum, who's one of the few credible people that I do like on ESPN. And he said that they could have gotten 2 first rounders if he would have signed his tender or whatever and held out. But Green Bay just wanted to wash away and just get him out of there and go from there. But yeah, and I like Mike Tannenbaum. He is pretty knowledgeable. I can't say everything bad about the network. I mean, because I watch him all the time and I depend on him for my information, regardless of who delivers it, whatever the case may be. But yeah, you're right. I think you're right, Steve. Trading him outside the division and the conference, they don't want to have to face a guy a couple of times. But nevertheless, they still played up the Davante Adams trade quite a bit too, because obviously the Adams connected to the Rodgers. Okay, no, I'm not trying out for a singing audition, Rick Curti. All I can tell you is the Davante Adams situation got milked pretty good by ESPN as well, obviously because of the Rodgers connection.
Yeah, I was happy for Davante. I said, good. Take one of his best weapons out of there, because to me, Aaron Rodgers is an incredibly selfish human being. He's money hungry. I think he's a terrible teammate, and all that guaranteed money that he's getting, all these other players are saying. So he got all this money and he caved into all his demands. And Davante's like, show me the money. And it's like, I'm not doing this. I can't deal with him. He's a diva. And hey, I want to play with Carr. I could go to the Raiders. and they're a good team. Why not? So I applaud Devontae Adams. Good for him. And I think that's just a toxic situation right now with Green Bay. And I agree with the coaching staff, LaFleur, and everyone else has just they've been nothing but professional and just done a great job. Most organizations would be like destroyed by that, but the Packers, they're so great in the regular season, they just come up short in the playoffs. And that has to do with Aaron Rodgers. He just can't show up in the big games. He's a great regular season quarterback, but in the big games, he chokes, and that's just all it is. And I'm happy for Devontae. He's getting his money. And when he saw Rodgers getting all that money and acting the way he was, it was time for him to go. And and now he's good friends with Carr, and I think it's a great situation for him.
Yeah, the bottom line with Devontae Adams is he's given them ample time to negotiate in good faith to give him a good contract, and they kept messing around with Rodgers. And yes, they were teammates at Fresno State as well, so now they're back in Vegas, and I think they're going to do some good work. So, JBL, give me your thoughts about Devontae Adams.
Listen, I applaud him getting out of Green Bay. First of all, it's cold up in Green Bay. I saw a game. I saw them play the Bears on Sunday night. It is cold. Get me in a dome in Vegas where it's 90 degrees, 80 degrees in the winter. Get me another decent quarterback. I mean, not Aaron Rodgers, but he's still pretty good on a team that could possibly win it. I don't have to deal with the drama every week. Get me on the first line out of there. Good for him.
Yeah, well, more importantly, there's no state income tax in Vegas either. Just stay away from the casino.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Stay away from the casino.
And don't snow either.
Let me tell you, when I used to go to Vegas, I was in the casino a little bit, but I would take side trips to Hoover Dam, and I would take side trips over to Laughlin and Bullhead City, which is named after me, Bullhead City, just so people realize. So, that's for another lifetime in the conversation. And but Hoover Dam, Laughlin, Bullhead City, and I used to take helicopter rides over to the Grand Canyon. Not the worst thing in the world. But Mel Farr, give me your take on Devontae Adams.
I mean, I think the trade worked out well for everybody. I mean, I'm happy for Devontae. He got his money. I don't think Green Bay was going to give him his money. I don't think they were in a position to give him the money, even though they said that, they are willing to even pay more than what he eventually received from the Raiders. But what is that going to do to the team? You got all that money tied up in those two players, and so what else can you do? So I think it works out well for Green Bay, and the fact that now they're able to, if they are able to make wise picks with the picks that they receive from the Raiders, they can kind of reset in a couple areas and get some depth, because they are going to be paying Aaron Rodgers a whole lot of money, and really he's the only player that they're really paying a ton of money. So they'll have an opportunity to have to get some young players out there and get a lot of productivity out of some young players while Aaron Rodgers is still playing at a high level. And Aaron's got to prove that that he can do what Tom Brady did. That he can make those guys better around him. And so I think it's good for the Packers. It's going to give them an opportunity to reset a little bit, and it's great for Devontae. He gets out of Green Bay, like JB was talking about, gets out of the cold, and he's with a familiar face, somebody that he played with in college, and he's very comfortable with it. Derek Carr is obviously a pretty decent quarterback because they just gave him an extension, 3 years, $120 million. So I mean, he's going to be, that's $40 million a year. That's good money. That's saying that he's a pretty good quarterback. Every year they're talking about Derek Carr. But I've always liked Derek Carr when he came out. I always thought he was a gritty guy. I think they can win with him, and I think maybe they got the right coach around him right now. I don't know. We'll see. But I know they got some players around them. That's for certain. They got some running backs. They got some wide receivers. They got some defense. So the Raiders, they play in the toughest division in football. But it should be interesting to see what they're able to do this year.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels actually walked into a good situation. Let's just hope that he can learn from his first situation and excel here as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, let's face the reality. I'm happy that Devontae Adams got a fresh start. Vegas is a good place for him to be. And, again, you can't be happier than to play with your old college teammate. It worked out well. And I'll be very curious to see what the Packers do with these picks. And I think the Packers fans are going to be more intrigued about this draft than any other draft, because they certainly obviously are going to be looking at the wide receiver position. I know there's a few veteran receivers out there, but nobody's even touched them. I'm not going to get into it. So I think it'll be interesting to see where they go. The last person I want to talk about tonight, just so you know, folks, You're listening and watching the Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Man. I'll please be joined by Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion, Steve Balestrieri, Mr. Patriot, and military, and for his work with the military, does some awesome work with his military publications. JB Ellis, well, the consummate pro, and the Mel man, Mel Farr, my favorite running back out here, and a guy who I value as a dear friend. More importantly, he had a fine career with the Rams as well. So our last person we're going to talk about tonight is going to be Deshaun Watson. I got $230 million worth of coin, and ESPN got a lot of contact about where this guy was headed. Was he going to his hometown, Atlanta? Did Arthur Blank want him to come back home? Was he going to New Orleans? Was he going to have any New Orleans Hurricanes on Bourbon Street? Shame on you if you did, because those are really good drinks, and they do sneak up on you to give you the best hangover on the planet. Take it from a guy like me that knows. And if that wasn't good enough, he could have gone to the Carolina Panthers with the ownership out there. So we're going to go ahead with Mr. Curti on this one about Deshaun Watson. Let's talk about ESPN's coverage about Deshaun Watson.
Well, that was like one of the most intriguing ones of all. That one was just like, what's going to happen to him? Where is he going to go? Because you know where he's going to go. And then when he does go to a team, is he going to be suspended for 4 games? Is he going to be suspended for the season? What's going to happen with these allegations on him? Is he going to go to trial? That really was an intriguing thing because there was such a lot of question marks. And I have to say this, that press conference, I saw the whole thing with the Browns president. It was the most bizarre press conference I ever seen. One person said that it was more. I think Rich Eisen said it was more like a funeral than a press conference because it was very somber. All the questions were about the allegations against him. Why did you do this? You gave him all this guaranteed money. Are you protecting yourself? And it was very awkward. It was you had to be careful what they said, and it was just a very weird press conference. I've never seen anything like that before, but that was, of all the stories, that was the most intriguing to me, and it's going to be interesting what happens. And then you got that other layer of what's going to happen with their current quarterback. So it's still to be continued, as I like to say.
All right, Steve, what's your take on Deshaun Watson? Obviously, going home wasn't the answer, so now he's going to Cleveland. That was willing to spend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking, was it overblown? Probably a little, but this was a huge story. It really was. And the fact that he ended up where he did, I don't think anyone had him pegged going there. I think most of the people thought he was going to end up in another place. So that kind of was, I mean, and then, you have the Browns, being the Browns, they issued a statement that they vetted him completely, which really ticked off the people that, were victims or alleged victims of him, with some of the things that he had done before. So it was a crazy situation. It's still developing, really. I mean, because he's the quarterback. I mean, he's going to get paid a boatload of cash, and the Browns are on the hook for every single cent of that, and we still don't know when he's going to play next. So that, was it overblown? Yeah, but not really, because it's still developing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. I mean, number one, to get $230 million guaranteed, and we all know that the Cleveland franchise has been dysfunctional and they've had problems for a lot of years. But you're right, this is a developing story, and I know we definitely haven't heard the end of it. But if you get $230 million and the Browns are desperate enough to give it to you, you do it. But the key words that you said, Steve, it is a developing story, and we're waiting for the actual suspension count and whether they're going to be forced to keep Baker Mayfield or not. Whether he go back there or not, that's another story, which we won't get into, but it's out there. I mean, everything with the Browns seems to be bizarre, but the key word is developing, and we haven't heard the end of this story. So get ready for more ESPN content about Deshaun Watson. We are far from it. I guess if I was going to make a prediction where I thought he was going to go, it would have been Atlanta, his hometown. I wasn't so sure about New Orleans, and I wasn't sure about the Carolina Panthers either. It all came down to the draft capital and the haul that they were going to get. And I think that if I will mention one thing about Mayfield, that I was surprised that Deshaun Watson wasn't traded for Baker Mayfield like we saw with the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford situation and draft choices. But again, that's just something that people can think about. But all right, JB, where do you want to go with Deshaun Watson?
Listen, whenever you get allegations of sexual impropriety, nobody knows except for the accuser or the accused whether it happened or not. So I hate having to talk about that. And unfortunately, in sports, sometimes we have to. This is one of those situations. And when you see a guy who is as talented as Deshaun Watson sit on the bench for a whole year, not be suspended, but the team just basically saying, we're not going to play you. They don't say anything about it. There's talks of trading him. Nobody wants him, or no trades go through by the trade deadline. You get to the off season, and they finally, make a deal with Cleveland, who has a starting quarterback of their own that has drama. You wonder, I get why it's talked about. There's so much more that's going to have to be talked about before this is all said and done. It's one of those stories, because we weren't there, we don't know if any of this happened or didn't happen. I can't give credit to either side until, it comes out in either a civil or a criminal case. And, it's not fair for either side. So it's kind of one of those, I hate as sports, when we have to get into that particular topic. But as far as the football part of it, Cleveland, them and the Jets should be like brother organizations. Maybe together they can put together a front office that cannot mess something up, put together a coaching staff that can run a team properly, and get, whatever 70, 80 guys on a roster that can put together a winning season, because they just mess everything up too.
Yeah, I think the amazing part about it is once he did not get charged, that's when the trade started to heat up. If he had been charged and indicted, then in my opinion, Deshaun Watson is still with the Houston Texans. And I know one of the reasons why we went with Deshaun Watson is I'll go back to a song that Vanessa Williams said, save the best for last. And with that said, since I saved the best for last, we go back to Mel Farr Jr. to put a lid on this topic, and then we're going to call it a night here on Inside the Pigskin. All right, Mel, where are we going with Deshaun Watson?
Well, there's a lot of layers to the story. That's why it's such a big story. First of all, how did we get here? I never understood how it got to the point where Deshaun Watson could demand a trade. It's kind of, on one hand, I don't understand it, but on the other hand, it's kind of good that these players now are exercising the power that they have to be able to move, because we haven't seen quarterback movement like this ever, player movement like this ever. The players are realizing they have a lot more power than they thought they had, and they're being able to, to demand some things and to get moved or to get paid. But again, I don't understand, with the hiring of the general manager, how Deshaun Watson thought he was supposed to be a part of that process, so that we even got to this point. Then you had the allegations that came out after that. The other reason why it's a big story is that Cleveland gave up a lot of draft capital for a quarterback that still has some things that he must work through. And they had their quarterback was their number one draft pick, number one overall draft pick, and they exercised his option year on his rookie contract. So he's got a $19 million guaranteed salary, but yet you went out and mortgaged the future for somebody who has a ton of baggage. But you could have kept the guy, and you really could have kept who you had, because you had confidence in him a year ago to exercise the fifth-year option on his contract. So there's a lot of layers to peel back on this story, and that's why it will continue to be a story. And now, I think JB was talking, or somebody was talking about the fact that, or maybe it was you, Scott, that he wasn't included in the trade. Well, that kind of tells you what teams think about Baker Mayfield. Definitely tells you what the Texans think about him. But we see what other teams think about him. They'll take him on, but they don't want to take on that salary. And they certainly aren't going to give up a first-round draft pick for him. So at some point, I think the best thing that Cleveland can probably do is really keep him, because letting him go, what do they get, a compensatory pick in the draft? Because if he signs with some other team, I think maybe he'll get a compensatory pick. They'll get a compensatory pick, maybe. I'm not sure exactly how that works when you lose a free agent, but otherwise, they're not going to get, the longer and longer they keep him, the less value he has now, especially since everybody knows that they're going to go with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. They brought in Jacoby Brissett to back him up. So they know that this guy, he's a dead man walking right now. They know that he's going to be available at some point in time. And if you just hang in there long enough and nobody blinks, everybody just keeps their poker face, he'll be on the street, and then he'll be free to go where he wants to go, where he has the best opportunity to play. And I still think that's going to be with the Steelers.
Oh, do you really? Okay. Well,
Sure.
You know what? There you go, Mel Farr. By the way, you see Mel Farr here every Wednesday night, so he has something to look forward to. Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that one up. He reminded us that Baker Mayfield with the Steelers, see him twice a year, and all of a sudden Cleveland's eating crow. I think really when you, oh God, I can only imagine that one. I don't know whether we devote an entire broadcast to that one. I'm sure we could fill 30 minutes easily with that.
The Steelers might blink, though. They may blink.
Oh, I don't know. Now you got me thinking that it could happen, so don't even go there.
They may blink and they may trade for him. They may blink, but if they just, they just stay, they keep that poker face.
That's it. Yeah. Well, the amazing part about Baker Mayfield is once upon a time he did win a playoff game or two, and all of a sudden you're no good after a year and he got banged up. And the only thing he's done wrong is his social media antics are ridiculous. But as far as the Deshaun Watson thing is concerned, yeah, is Cleveland going to get stuck keeping him? And the question is whether he'd even go back. I can't imagine him forfeiting salary, but you know what? We won't even put that out there. But you're right. I have a feeling that, just so you know, folks, this broadcast is called Sports Media Overkill. I've taken the 5 best ones that describe what we're looking to talk about, and Deshaun Watson is the capper. So with that said, this concludes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. But before we go, though, we're going to let my incredible crew let everybody know how they go hold them. But before we do that, JB Ellis, what jersey are you wearing? Where are you?
No jersey tonight.
No jersey.
Jersey free. Jersey free.
All right. Well, then, if you're not wearing a jersey, let everybody know how they get a hold of you, JB.
Sideline Sports on Tuesday night at Sideline Sports 1. Joe Ellis on LinkedIn, JB Ellis on Facebook, and of course here every Wednesday.
Very good. Absolutely. We love having you, JB. You're a great addition to our crew. All right, Rick Curti.
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. I'm on Facebook at Charlotte MLB. I'm also on there at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on LinkedIn under Rick Curti. And if you have any questions, you can contact me on my email address at cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
And on top of that, Rick Curti does some incredible work helping us in social media, getting things out. And JB's done an outstanding job helping us on social media to get the content out. We appreciate you guys doing what you do very much. So with that said, Steve Balestrieri, Mr. Patriot, let everybody know how they can go ahead, read your incredible work and all the things that you do out there, Steve.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at SteveB7SFG, and after a career in Army Special Forces, which is cool because I'm in the secret square tonight. Right above me is the SF instead of South Florida, could be Special Forces. But I write about military affairs. I'm a national security columnist for 1945.com. I write about special operations and politics and military stuff. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Steve Balestrieri, excuse me. And for football, I write for the Pats at PatsFans.com.
All right. Well, we got to go to the Mel Man. Okay. That's his new nickname. I guess I'll have to remember that. I don't know if he likes that nickname or not, but it really, Mel is a man and he's a good man. I'll tell you, he's improving with every show. But whether it's tabloids, bringing up the old Steelers, Browns connection, he leaves us always talking after these shows. So, all right, Mel, seriously speaking, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you? Just so you know, every Wednesday night, Mel Farr is here on the broadcast. We love having Mel. I've known him a long time. He's a good friend, and more importantly, he's improving as a broadcaster. With that said, okay, Mel, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Get a hold of me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. Find out what we're doing here in Atlanta and also up in Michigan for the youth in the area at melfarr.org.
All right, and last but not least, myself. Okay, if you didn't hear me the first time, you can hear the audio version of the show, all of our shows for that matter, on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at no cost, South Florida Tribune. And we appreciate your subscribing. That way you get all the necessary notifications when we come on the air and when we release these as well. Also, you can find the shows on www.southfloridatribune.com. You can reach me on Twitter at Tribune South. And of course, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. So, I also want to give a shout out to Candy Ebling. We all know that even that she does an outstanding job, not only putting the shows up, but an outstanding job putting the content up. Without her, the South Florida Tribune wouldn't be a very viable or credible thing that we're looking to improve it day in and day out. So Candy Ebling is our unsung hero every single day, and we're proud of the work that we puts in, as I'm proud of all you guys as well. So with that said, on behalf of Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion, Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., and JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Tonight's title is Sports Media Overkill, and we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to hopefully listen to this again and enjoy the opinions that we put out there. Maybe some of you'll agree with us. But we will catch you on the next episode. Good night, everybody, and have yourself a great week from Inside the Pigskin.